Good afternoon, everyone. It is my sincere pleasure to be here today. My name is Tal Elgar. I'm the Intel lead for Intel business with HPE, selling and marketing across all of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And as I've kind of put up there on the slide with the picture of the heart, if you kind of cut my heart open, one half is Intel blue, one half is HPE green. So this is the landscape that we're all living in. You know, the world is becoming digital. All businesses are on their path to becoming digital businesses, and IT is becoming their business. So IT transformation is at the heart of this momentous shift, where you need to be able to have the flexibility, the agility in order to meet the demands of the new data era, and to be able to modernize legacy applications to meet these new demands. And that's why we've seen the rise of things like cloud computing. And just to be clear, what I mean by that is not just the public cloud, which is far from being the answer to all your troubles, but it's more of what we've been hearing, and we subscribe to that point of view as well, of a hybrid cloud, so a blend of both private and public, because they both have their benefits. We also had a fantastic presentation earlier by Dr. Go on AI and analytics, and we've seen this big explosion of data. And we have a reliance on all this data in order to feed these AI algorithms, train them, make them trustworthy and viable. And finally, we also have the edge and the network that connects it back. And much of the explosion of the data is not restricted sitting in the data center anymore. It's about data exploding at the edge and increasingly getting processed at the edge. So in this data-centric world, we have a notion that data is the new oil, and we know that the pace of data is only increasing. We also know that all the data in the world, half of it was created in just the last 2 years. We also know that only 2% of it has actually been looked at and analyzed. And to be honest, the companies that are going to thrive, prosper, and survive are the ones that are going to invest in unlocking these learnings. Take an oil company, for example. Oil exploration is becoming more challenging. You need to find new sources. This could be the difference between having a very expensive hole in the ground, I think $500 million, to kind of securing your new revenue stream. Or if you're a retailer, you know that 50% of your marketing is ineffective, but you don't know which 50%. And so if you have analytics that you can leverage, you can be more smart and targeted about it. So how does Intel fit in? Whilst you might not come across our technologies, our products, even the people directly many a times, we continue to be a very prominent and powerful brand, and to be specific, number 11, in the world. We're a highly successful business. We run a $70 billion per annum business, and specifically in the data center, which is the business we have with HPE, onwards with yourselves, it's a $23 billion business for us per annum. Intel is known as one of the main engines of innovation within the industry. And it comes as no surprise because, as you see from the chart up there, Intel is the 5th largest investor into research and development. But actually, it is the largest by considerable margin if you look at it as a proportion of our revenue. So kind of around 20, 21%. So all industries, Intel is the company that puts most of its earnings back into R&D out of any other company out there on the planet. Our innovation is spread across 6 pillars. Let me kind of take you through them briefly. Starting with the advanced manufacturing processes that drive Moore's Law in order to be able to have a higher density of transistors in a given real estate that goes onto the different products, driving more performance and features. But also the investments in the facilities that make these products in the first place, and each one of these new sites cost only $7 billion these days. Beyond that, is the architecture, so the performance and feature improvements that are delivered with the new designs. For example, in some of the new products, they have special artificial intelligence features in there that software can take advantage of. Memory, so we're shifting over from compute to more memory-focused products. I'll say a little bit more about that in a few slides. The networking, security, which is becoming more and more paramount, and we're embedding it into the hardware, so you get the performance benefits of that, as well as the robustness and security. And then finally, the interoperability and optimization of the software running on our hardware. In fact, we have an army of 15,000 software engineers at Intel working on this. And if we were considered a software company, we'd be the 5th largest one in the world. So everyone knows Intel for its processors, mainly Xeon in the data center. But we have a much increased portfolio, things like FPGAs, which are efficient accelerators for a variety of different workloads, largely based on our acquisition of a company called Altera a few years back to the sum of $15 billion. Things like Movidius, which is a VPU. VPU stands for Visual Processing Unit, and it's using video as a sensor to collect data, typically applying it in AI applications. We also have our AI neural network, NNP processors. The family is called Nirvana, coming out in the next few months, so still kind of this year. Again, AI focused. But beyond compute, we're also in the business of moving data and storing data. So you get Intel SSDs, but also a new class of products called Optane, which again, I'll kind of say more about. So in this relatively short presentation, if there's one thing I wanted to really highlight, it's something that is relatively new for Intel and perhaps for the market and yourselves in the audience, which is re-architecturing the memory storage hierarchy. Pretty much forever, we lived in the world where data sits in storage of some sort, a tape drive, hard drive, solid-state drive these days. But in order to do anything useful with that data, you need to shift it over to a processing unit of some sort. You load it into memory, and then you're constrained by how much memory you have, the cost of that memory. So what we're doing is we're actually blending memory and storage with something called Optane, and we have two flavors of that. One is an SSD-like flavor. Think of it as a more performant solid-state drive. But what's even more exciting is something that's just come out in the last couple of months called Intel Optane DC Persistent Memory. It's quite a mouthful. We've been developing materials in the Intel labs over the last decade called 3D Crosspoint. You have kind of a little visual of it up there, and that's what's powering this new class of products. So what we've done is essentially take the capacity size and the persistence that you get in storage, but we're running it at near DRAM, near memory speeds, at a cost which is lower than DRAM significantly. And so, once again, we're blending storage and memory together. What this makes possible is drives a much higher density of performance. You need less nodes in order to give an overall total amount of performance, less cooling, less power, less software licenses. So a lot of great TCO savings as a result, and a lot of things that you weren't able to do before, and you're able to do them a lot quicker as well. So as we say, save more, do more, and go faster. And whilst you might think some of these things have been out of reach for you or not relevant, this is really where you can take advantage of some of these technologies and their affordability and turn them into a competitive advantage for yourselves. Finally, one thing I'd like to highlight is the fantastic and ongoing partnership that we have between Intel and HPE. Yes, we're the key sponsor of this event, but I always refer to it as a tip of the iceberg where you only see a bit on top of the surface, but I can personally attest to all the great things that are happening beneath the surface and behind the scenes that we're working together with HPE that you could benefit through their portfolio. With that, I know we're short on time, so I've condensed my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope you learned something, and enjoy the rest of your conference.